Hello, my name is Sumari De Bruin, and I am proudly hosting this masterclass on time management tips for women on behalf of Adapt to Change. As I was preparing for this masterclass, my one business partner shared with me a story that he remembers fondly from his childhood. He was driving along in the car, in the back seat of his grandfather's car. His granddad was driving, and they were hitting peak traffic. It was complete chaos. The cars were backing up, the drivers were getting impatient, horns were being honked. And he remembers his grandfather very slowly, very intently looking from side to side at all of this chaos that was surrounding them, and then chuckling to himself and saying, "Time is not my master. I am time's master." And that was his explanation for why he was not getting worked up. So let's get cracking to help you master your time management. Now, the first thing that I want you to think about is what you have in common with these people. So, who do we have on the screen? On the top row, on the left hand side, we start with Mother Teresa. She was a nun who dedicated her entire life to servicing and helping others. She also is a Nobel Prize winner. Next to Mother Teresa, we find Michelangelo, a sculptor, painter, architect, poet, and engineer. Next to Michelangelo, we find Helen Keller, an author, a political activist, a lecturer, and probably one of the things that the most people remember her for, she was the first deaf-blind person to earn a Bachelor's of Arts degree. Next to her, we find Louis Pasteur, chemist and microbiologist, whose breakthroughs in prevention of diseases will forever put him in our minds. Then in the bottom row on the left-hand side, we've got Leonardo da Vinci. Again, a painter, sculptor, architect, musician, scientist, mathematician, engineer, inventor, and I can just go on. Next to him, we have Thomas Jefferson, a US president, but also the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. And next to him, we have got Albert Einstein, a physicist who developed the relativity theory. Now, looking at all of these and considering what you have in common with them, this is really where my time management journey began. And the thing is, we have exactly the same number of hours per day that was given to Helen Keller, to Louis Pasteur, to Michelangelo, Mother Teresa, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, and Albert Einstein. And when I read this quote for the first time, it really shocked me in my tracks. I looked at it and I thought, wow, we're talking about people who uh, stopped people from dying, Nobel Prize winners, deaf-blind people who got degrees, people who painted the 16th chapel. I mean, these are big things that we are talking here. And I've got exactly the same amount of time as them. I have to be able to achieve more. Well, now, before you get the wrong idea, this old gentleman that you see on the screen now is not the root cause of the problem. He is, in fact, my grandfather. So when I got the shocking realization that I obviously have the potential available to me to achieve all of these great things because I've got the same amount of time available as all of these other people, I started looking at all of these things that I'm doing with my life. So I am a granddaughter to my grandfather and grandmother. I'm also a daughter to my parents and a sister to my brother and sisters. I'm an auntie, one of my favorite roles to play. And although I'm not a mother yet, I am a mother in a certain sense of two four-legged beings. I am very involved in community work. I do a lot of guest talks, and of course, there is my job to fulfill as well as consultant and trainer. Definitely have to make time for spending social time with my friends. Then I also, of course, attend a number of other courses. So we've just hit March and I've already completed my first course of the year. I'm currently busy with my second one. Continuous learning is really a big passion of mine. I'm also an author. And then there's the other fun things that I do, the energizing things, the recharging and me time, like working in my garden. And I was looking at all of these things and I was thinking, okay, so I don't yet see winning Nobel Prizes and painting the 16th chapel and solving diseases on the list. So, I am still not doing something right. And as I started investigating what I really spend my time on, I came across some very, very interesting statistics. So let's imagine that the time we have available on this earth can be compared to the length of a ribbon. The average person I found lives approximately 80 years. Now, a third of that is generally spent sleeping. And before you all think that you're going to start staying awake all night already, we've actually already passed a lot of that sleeping, especially when we were babies and children. And sleeping is good for you, it's very important for your health. Another 10% is spent on basic needs, things like eating, going to the bathroom. And then another 20% of our lives is spent in education, in schools, and going to work. Another 15% is generally spent wasted on cleaning, waiting, searching for things. And that means that there is only that little bit of my entire ribbon left for me in which to fit all of those other things that I showed you earlier. And more. I would like the Nobel Prize as well. And that, in fact, is only about 25% of your entire ribbon that you've got left to allocate in whichever way that you want to, that you've got more control over. Now, one of the best stories that I ever read about how to keep this in your focus all of the time so that you are really aware of how you are spending what little time you do have was a gentleman who actually worked out if he was to live about 80 years, how many weeks he had left in his life. And for each week, he then took a marble and he put them in a jar in his garage. And every Saturday evening, he would go out into the garage and he would go and take one of those marbles out. And just seeing how that jar of marbles was reducing all of the time, and that conscious act of going to take one out really made him focus on what was important to him because he could actually see physically before him how his life was passing by. So, what is it that we can do, ladies? So, there is hope. And what I'm going to share with you is some of the things that I've had to learn and that I've actually gotten a lot of value out to help me get closer to earning that Nobel Prize. So, number one, you have to start diarizing. You have to start tracking what you are currently spending your time on. And this doesn't have to be very complicated, it doesn't have to go down to the nth degree, but actually just start tracking that I've just now spent an hour on the phone speaking with my family or with a friend. I've spent another 2 hours at the movies. I spent 3 hours in traffic today. I spent an hour reading. I spent 5 hours working. Whatever it is, doesn't have to go as in I was working with this client and this was what we were working on. You do not yet have to go down to that detail. As you are continuously working on refining your time management skills, you can go into more and more detail as you go along. But start by tracking so that you can see what you are currently spending your time on. And most often, I see that the results are really, really surprising to the people. The second thing then is based on what you currently are spending your time on and what you really want to be spending your time on, you create a new plan for yourself. You might find that you are spending 5 hours a day in traffic, and you might decide to rather start driving outside of peak times so that you can reduce that and rather use that time for something else. It's just one small little example. One very important thing as you do create your plan is to make sure that you eliminate your disruptions. The best way to eliminate them is really to schedule them for specific times in the day. So these are where we are talking about telephone calls, emails, all those things where you're actually busy with a different task and suddenly one of these things go ping, you've got mail, and you are completely distracted from the task that you were busy with. This is a very, very unproductive habit. If you can schedule that disruptive time to maybe, let's say, returning all calls between 3 and 4 in the afternoon, checking emails only between 12 and 1, or whatever the case may be that is workable for you, you actually consolidate all of those disruptions into that specific time slot, which gives you the rest of your day to really focus on the tasks that are important to you. And the last thing that I would like to highlight for you, just as our shoes need to match every day, ladies, make sure that what you are doing in reality is matching your plan. This is a very critical part. Otherwise, you have really just wasted all of that time creating that plan in the first place. So, step number 2, it is time to experiment with your time. It's time for that makeover. So, start shifting things up a bit. If you usually check your emails first thing in the morning, try to change that and see how it works for you to rather check it, let's say, between 1 and 3 or between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. Try different things and you might be surprised how just making small little changes like that actually improves your life a whole lot. Also, take the time to find your sweet spot. We all have a time during the day, sometimes it happens twice if we are lucky, where we are at our most energized.
Look, I can be a shark. Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah. I can do anything good. Better than anyone. Better than anyone.
For you, it might be early morning, it might be right around lunchtime, it might be late evenings. And this is the time where you really want to schedule some of your most intensive activities or get a lot of the yucky or little things done. Because you're at your best then. It's no use trying to do those tasks when your energy is at an absolute low. The third thing you need to do is to start discern. You have to identify who and what is deserving of your time. This is a very, very important step to take. Because once you can actually prioritize who is deserving of your time, it becomes a lot easier to schedule your plan accordingly. And you will feel a lot less guilty for actually get to those who matter. Just as important as getting to those who matter is getting to you because you matter. You have to take me time. Now, when I speak about me time, I often use the example of a bottle of water. If you have a full bottle of water and somebody comes up to you and asks you if they could please have some in their cup, it's not that big a deal. You can easily pour out some for them. But if 50 people have come past and each of them want a little bit of your water, very soon you are going to have no water left for anybody and not even for yourself. And that is what happens with me time as well. If we do not take the time out to fill our bottles, to fill ourselves with new energy, we lose the ability to continue sharing and dishing that out to other people and helping them in the way that we just really like to do. So it is very important to schedule your me time. What you will also find is the fact that it is actually in your schedule makes you feel less, well, cheated. Because if all we see in our diary is work, 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 and driving around the kids and having to be here for my husband and do the shopping there and all of these things, just looking at that makes us feel tired. But if included in that schedule, we can see where there is an hour for me or 2 hours for me or 4 hours time out. It actually makes us feel, you know what, it's okay because the me time is scheduled in as well, and we will get to that. The fourth thing on the 5-point plan is to delegate. You have to start sharing the load. Now, this sounds a lot easier than it is in reality, but you know what? Get creative about it.
A cup of coffee in the morning, and I get the paper. I check the headlines. check my email and I decide to answer later. Another cup of coffee and I drag myself to work. My life is grounded in a firm routine of coffee, sleep, and work. I am not boring, I just stick to what I know. I'm sitting there at work and I realized I forgot to wake up. I can't be productive when I'm dreaming about a sheep. I go upstairs and get myself another cup of coffee. I get downstairs and then I spill it on the floor. Well, my life is grounded in a firm routine of coffee, sleep, and work. I am not boring, I just stick to what I know. Rockabye baby on the treetop. Lunch hour's over and I can't stay up. I've got to drink coffee, but that's a mistake. I best switch to decaf or I'll stay awake. My life is drowned in a firm routine of coffee, sleep, and work. I am not boring, I just stick to what I know. Well, I am not boring, I just stick to what I know. I am not boring, I just stick to what I know. I stick to what I know. I stick to what I know.
Let's say, for instance, I stay in a little close. We are 5 people here. Each of us are making our own dinner every single night. That's 5 stoves on, 5 women trying to make the food in front of that warm stove. Wouldn't it be a much better idea if we each took a turn and one evening of the week each of us actually just cook for all 5 families? Now that's a very creative way of delegating the task. Many hands really do make light work. Whenever you do delegate, please make sure that you have very, very clear expectations. Tell the person what you want, by when you want it. It's no use if I'm cooking for all of the families and I don't know what they eat and what they don't eat. I don't know if there's any allergies that I need to be catering for. I don't know by what time in the evenings they need their meals. And make sure that you leave some space for creativity. If you're going to do this, please don't give the person the recipe to cook. Just tell them you would like maybe a pasta and you maybe do not eat chicken, as an example. But leave them with that detail to, within that framework, apply their own creativity, apply their own skill, and give you what they can make. The last one on my list is to develop an allergy. And yeah, I'm not talking about the hay fever allergies. I'm talking about becoming allergic to waste, to all of these things that actually waste our precious time. Things like cleaning. You've seen how big a part of our lives that takes up. It might not be necessary for you to do the cleaning. Standing in a queue. Maybe instead of standing in a queue, you can do those transactions or that part of your business online. Become allergic to all of these things that are wasting our time and taking it away from the people that we really value. The second one is be organized. If there's a place for everything and everything in its place, You will not lose as much time as little Bo Peep trying to search for her sheep. The third one of my favorites, is to use cheat sheets. Now, a cheat sheet is really just like a little template, and it works especially effectively for those ad hoc tasks, things that only come by maybe once in a year. Let's say a children's party. So once a year, it's your child's birthday, and a few weeks ahead of time, you already start scrambling around, trying to remember everything that you need to get, running around, not being sure if you have gotten everything or if you have forgotten in something off the list. Wouldn't it be easier to just take a standard list out of the cupboard every single year that says, okay, number one, cake. Number two, a small little chocolate for each child for the gift bag. Number three, at least 2 packets of chips per 5 kids, or whatever the case may be. Makes it a lot easier to plan, and it makes those tasks a lot more efficient. I use these cheat sheets all of the time. It's not just for when I do shopping, it's not just for my family life. I use it incredibly frequently within my business. Also, make sure that you fill up any unused time. So, if you do really have to go and stand in a queue and wait, don't just stand there and leave that time unused. Try and use it productively. Brainstorm in a little notebook, make that phone call that is overdue, try and check your emails from your iPad. Do whatever you need to do to make that productive time and not time lost. And the last thing on my list is please, please, please only employ technology that works for you. Yes, it does take time to get used to that new gadget and all the new functionality, and that is perfectly okay. But if after 8 months you are still not used to this thing and you are still struggling with it, let it go. Only use technology that really works for you. And then my last little bonus tip, consolidate any repetitive activities. And I'll go back to the example of cooking. Instead of cooking every single night, maybe put some time on a Saturday aside and cook all the meals for the entire week, pop them in the freezer, and that means you save all of that time for every night coming through this entire week. Whatever you do decide, ladies, just remember that what you do today is important, because effectively you are really exchanging a day of your life for it. I hope that you found some useful tips in this list. They've really worked well for me, and I encourage you to actually go and practically try them out. You will reap the benefits. As we always say in Adapt to Change, knowledge not applied is knowledge wasted. Please, you've already spent this time. Don't let it go to waste. Start applying these tips and tricks, and I am sure you will become a master of your time. If you've got any comments or questions, I welcome you to contact me. I'm available on info@adapttochange.co.za. I really look forward to hearing from you. Enjoy becoming a master of your time. Bye bye.